Here we are, folks. It is the Our Practice Makes Perfect podcast. I like to remind clients that it's not always bad news when you have to call a lawyer. It's not always, how much is this going to cost me? We do help you make money also. We do transactions. That's what we're going to focus on here today. Hopefully something kind of light, but yet interesting and also very important. Electronic signatures. So what am I talking about? Well, you've probably heard of DocuSign. Nowadays, there are lots of applications that offer that feature where you can just sign, you can sign on your computer, obviously, with a few clicks, but you can even do so right on your phone. You scroll a little bit, click a couple of times, you're done. It's a beautiful thing. Now, let's compare that to what we have done these years. So what would you have to do? You'd have to, usually print the document, sign it by hand, go find a notary. The notary and the witnesses also have to sign by hand. Then you have to come back, find a way to scan the document, and now finally you have a fully executed PDF where you had accomplished the exact same thing with a couple of clicks on your phone through electronic signature. And more than that, look at the quality of your scan, right? It certainly lost some of its integrity going through that whole process. And forget about it if you have to scan it multiple times, print it out multiple times, and then rescan it. You're definitely losing quality in that case. Whereas the DocuSign document is pristine, right? Okay, so in terms of convenience, in terms of cost efficiency, there's no comparison. And that leads some of my clients to ask the question of, this must be too good to be true, right? Is it risky? Are these electronic signatures somehow easier to hack or harder to enforce? Well, that's the question we're going to look at here today, and I think you might be surprised at the answer. So here we go. Part one. All right. Now, if you're a realtor, then you're probably already very used to electronic signatures. I mean, after all, everything short of the closing, everything leading up to the closing, these days it's typically done through a DocuSign type application, right? People sign on their phones or on their computers, and it's very simple. But those final closing documents, those usually are not signed electronically, right? We're still having to go through the whole thing that we talked about with the notary and the witnesses and all that. So that must mean that banks don't trust electronic signatures, right? And that would mean that for your important matters, maybe you shouldn't trust electronic signatures. I mean, that's what we're thinking, correct? Well, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to respectfully disagree. And here are the reasons. Well, let's start with the law. I'm a lawyer, right? So why not? All right. Now, there are a couple of federal acts that have been around now for like 20 years. Specifically, there's the cleverly named Electronic Signatures in Global and National Commerce Action. I say it's cleverly named because the acronym is e-sign. Nice, right? That's actually not the most important one, though. There is the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act. And what makes that one important is that it's been adopted by almost all the states. So we have federal laws, by and large, adopted at the state level as well. And what do these federal statutes say? Well, I'll give it to you in paraphrase. It says that, actually, I'll give you the exact language. It says, a record or signature may not be denied legal effect or enforceability solely because it is in electronic format. Okay, so that's the end of the legal analysis. As far as the law is concerned, there are no subtle exceptions. There are no lawyerly points to quibble over. A signature that is electronic has exactly the same effect as a handwritten signature. Part two. All right, so the legal analysis is very simple, but it does lead us into a deeper discussion of what exactly is the purpose of a signature, or as they used to say in ancient times, a mark. So I'm no history buff, but let's just talk very superficially about the history of signatures. Now, obviously, originally it was mostly used by royalty, and they had personal insignias. And the reason generally was so that the regular people, you and I, would know that the edict is coming from the person in charge. Well, we still have that, of course. I mean, presidents, governors, and other political leaders have their seals. That part doesn't concern us here so much though. These days, we all have a personal insignia. It's called our signature. Now, if you're a judge or something, that signature still carries with it the weight of authority and authenticity. But for most of us, our signature is about binding ourselves to a contract. Think about it. Even for small things, like signing a check or opening a bank account or whatever, your signature says, I am me, and I am entering into this transaction. And that really is the whole purpose of a signature, right? I mean, there's no magical quality to a signature. It's just those practical purposes. Now let's put this in the context of contracts, because that's really what we're talking about here. A contract is a meeting of the minds. And for legal effects, an agreement and a contract, they're used interchangeably. Now, in order for a contract to be binding, in order for there to be that meeting of the minds, the parties have to intend to contract. So, for example, if somebody holds a gun to your head and forces you to sign a piece of paper, sign a contract, well, that is not binding. That is not enforceable. It's just a piece of paper with some ink on it, because it was not your intention to enter into that deal. Now, the converse is also true. Let's say that you do actually intend to enter into a deal, but there's no piece of paper, like an oral contract, a gentleman's agreement. No offense, ladies, it's just expression. Well, those are legally binding. So why don't we all just use handshakes then? If it's all about the intention and it's not about the piece of paper or the signature, well, why not? Why do we even have all this paperwork? Okay, well, the answer is that people lie. There are not so many gentlemen and ladies in the world of business. So we need evidence to prove that there was, in fact, this meeting of the minds. So that is the ultimate analysis here. Signatures and the pieces of paper that they are on serve the purpose of evidence. They stand to show exactly what the parties intended to agree to, in case there's a lack of honesty or a lack of memory. So let's get into a side-by-side comparison. Part 3. Let's compare. All right, so if the primary purpose of a signature is to serve as evidence that a person actually meant to enter into an agreement, then what is the best thing we can do to have that evidence hold up in court? All right, well, let's go back to the traditional method. Have a witness or witnesses, notarization. I mean, that's all pretty good, right? It's a pain and it costs money. It's not convenient, but it does seem to be pretty hard to overcome, wouldn't you say? I mean, after all, we're talking about one, a signature that can be authenticated by an expert or just by anyone who has a sample of the person's signature. They can compare and contrast. So that's pretty good. 2, you have 1 or 2 other individuals acting as witnesses, and they are swearing that they observed with their eyeballs the person sign his or her name. So not bad. And then 3, a certified notary whose job it is to authenticate the signer's ID and affix a rather official looking seal to the document. So you would think that that would be pretty good evidence, right? Well, that typical procedure has worked pretty well these many years. But in my opinion, I think the security is deteriorating and is likely to continue breaking down as we go forward and come into better and better technology. Let me explain. Well, let's think about it. I mean, just how hard is it really to fake all those signatures and even fake the notary's stamp? You gotta think like a crook, and there are some risks involved. But if the bad guy is willing to lie in court to a judge, then, do you think this person is really going to be hesitant about using Photoshop or any other image manipulation software to just copy and paste those signatures and even the stamp? I mean, I'm no expert with document or image manipulation, but even I could pull that off. Sadly, it's really not all that difficult. Now, I'm not saying that the traditional method is no good. I'm just saying it's not as airtight as maybe it used to be. Okay, now let's compare that with electronic signatures. For starters, what I like about e-signatures is that they have to be done through some sort of communication device. I've mostly seen it done by email, but I suppose it can also be done by text message. And why would that be an advantage? Well, if the parties are communicating by email or text, then there's probably going to be some thread of communication leading up to that electronic signature. And I think that preliminary dialogue is extremely valuable. I'll tell you why. Well, for one thing, I think it's probably much harder to fake. Now, I do realize there are cyber criminals out there, and they hack emails. So I'm not saying it's impossible. In fact, I know for certain that identification theft is possible. And it's a big part of the real estate industry. So I do realize that happens. Okay, but being real for a second here, I mean, it takes a great deal more expertise and time and trouble and resources than just photoshopping a couple of signatures, right? I mean, I would not know how to do it myself. How do you hack someone's email and pretend to be that person? Unless you get a hold of their login credentials. That might be the exception. But you see what I mean, right? If you get somebody's login credentials, then you're probably close to that person, and why would you be hacking that person anyway? So, by and large, I think that while not bulletproof, I mean, one has to be a pretty clever and resourceful crook in order to hack and defeat the email system. 2. Now, these e-sign applications always generate some kind of certificate which contains email addresses, dates, and other identifying information. Now, I'm sure that these certificates can be faked in the same way that a notary stamp can be copy-pasted. But it's additional evidence. It's an additional proof that you can take into court. It helps. Number 3, and this is the big one for me. There's probably going to be some communication leading up to the electronic execution of the document, right? I mean, we're probably going to see some of the history behind the deal, and that history is going to show the parties' intentions. And we'll have that in written format, right? If we're communicating by email or text, then now I have something I can print out and I can show what led up to that signature, and the fact that everybody was on board. It was understood. It was voluntary. Now, I'm not saying that that's 100%. I mean, certainly when I have a consultation with somebody by phone or in person, then I follow up with an email that contains a link where they can e-sign the document, my engagement agreement. So it can happen that there'll just be an e-signature invitation that comes out of the blue, but it's not that typical. And there can be conversation after the fact, right, which serves the same purpose. It serves the same purpose of confirming the party's intentions and that this was not faked. So here's what I'm saying. Let's say that you're trying to get out of something that you signed, and the other side has not only your electronically signed document and the certificate that goes with it, but they also have the discussions leading up to the e-signature. Well, what are you going to say? The only thing you can say is that you're hacked, but that excuse is not going to work in every circumstance. I mean, okay, if it's a real estate transaction and there are hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, well, there could be a third-party fraudster who has the resources and the expertise to hack your email account and steal the purchase funds. All right, now in that event, you're going to have a theft, which is easily demonstrable, and your story about being hacked is going to make sense to the judge. But that won't be the case very often, right? So there you have it, after that side-by-side comparison, in my humble opinion, e-signatures are actually safer than traditional handwritten signatures. And that's even if you go to the trouble of finding witnesses and getting notarization. I'll tell you what, though. Let's pretend, for the sake of argument, that all things are equal. That both the traditional method and e-signatures are equally subject to fraud. I mean, after all, we've all watched these heist movies. We know that for every security measure that we come up with, there's going to be some clever crook that figures out a way around it. Okay, fine. But if all things are equal, well then, for the love of God, let's just take advantage of the convenience, expediency, and cost efficiency of electronic signatures. So, as my parting thought, my little pet peeve, if I'm being honest, vendors, if you're not offering electronic signatures and online payment, you're a dinosaur. Get with the program. This is the 21st century here. But that's what I've got for you today, folks. If you had any doubts about electronic signatures, put those to rest. Recuerda que hablamos español, and I will see you on the next one.